Continuing with this practice of preparation for the crisscross, I would like to assist you to understand that when you go to the diamond of the leg before you go to crisscross, like we make believe that the diamond becomes, the arm becomes the diamond of the legs, when you go around to go to the crisscross, it's a rotation of the hip joint. If this will be the hip joint, a rotation of the hip joint around you to arrive to the crisscross. It's important because the tendency sometimes will be like, we're just going to go this way and that way. Bring it down and come into you. Instead of a circle around you to release the hip joint from the socket in order to be able to go around. Because remember that in the free symbols of balance that we were showing before, when the shoulder girdle and the lower back become a little bit overextended or over tight, then the hip joint is encrusted in it. So encrusted into the socket. So we want the socket joint to release that encrustation and to regain a point of centering so that the legs are really extending the abdominals and then interconnecting organs and giving the direction to the torso. So they are not a place, the upper leg is not an isolated place, it's a continuation or a connection of your entire body. So I would like to show you the difference between going around and into crisscross or going down, so you can see what is that you are discovering in your placement of going from diamond to crisscross. Remember that when you find the placement and you're supporting the knees through your pillows, it's easy for you to lift the hip a little bit out of the floor and to create or to make sure that your lower back is up and around you. So it's not into you, but it's really opening the hips. The hip is opening right and left, just as your torso is opening right and left. Okay? So now, if we go back to the diamond, right there, one there, and then right there. Now, I want you to notice that when I'm going around, I'm opening from your feet again, not from the thigh, but from the feet. You see, around from the feet, the lower leg and the upper leg, and the whole thing becomes a circle going around me, and the same here, around into a rotation. Wonderful. What I wanted to avoid is the idea that it's just going to go down and in, like this, because then I'm just pushing the socket into one edge of the socket, and what I want again to rotate it around and then rotate it around into it to arrive to that place. Yeah, wonderful. Now, once we define that and make the difference between going down with your legs but to rotate around, when you're rotating you will feel that you already lifted. And then the second preparation will be going arms to the moon, and then from the moon opening to the sun. Right there. So crisscross becomes the opening of right and left in your hips, and the sun becomes the opening of right and left in your arms. Two halves of your torso are centrally polarized at the center of your rib cage. And this is a very good place to spend time in it, just for a few seconds, to sense that you are defining the right and the left. And then from there, just come back to the moon and just descend for a moment. Beautiful. And then you can change your legs. You can, the leg this and the front goes back into the diamond, and then it rotates and rotates. You find the connections of your knees supporting the pelvis, and we go one more time. We go into the moon, and then the moon becomes the sun. Lovely. I want you to experience that my fingers in this circular embrace, large sphere, is maybe like 2 feet from the floor, 2 feet from the floor. It's quite high. Because if I go too low, you see I'm start pressing with the shoulder joint into the upper arm into the shoulder joint, and then I pushing with the scapula down. So the sun is the perfect freedom of the scapula and the perfect connection to the pectoral muscles as they pass through the arms. This is very good. And then I want you to begin, when you're here, to begin to witness that the right and the left are also the transversal, so that the left knee and leg and crisscross is my right arm, and vice versa. Because if I go here, you see, if I pass that point too much, then I don't have transversals anymore. You see, I went too much back. So the sun is a point of connection of right and left, and also transversal. And then after a few seconds, just descend for a moment, wonderful, and then release. Now, if you feel that when you practice to the sun that your muscles are getting like too tight because you're extending everything, just remember that when you come into the moon right here and you go to horizon, you can shake a little bit, everything, like that. And then the last moment of shake becomes the definition of energy, like that. And then you descend back into the moon. Wonderful. And the same you can do with the legs. You see, you go in the legs here, and then just shake the legs a little bit, like everything, shake it, and then just go back again, find the energy, and go back. So the definitions are always inside of looseness. You don't want definitions in the beginning that they are like really tight, because it will shorten the reflexes instead of expanding them. Okay? Wonderful. Next preparation of practice is another movement that is called crown heart. And I would like to, you stay still again in crisscross, and you can switch places in crisscross. Remember, you're always switching places. And this other preparation is that you bring in both hands together and you go to the placement called central heart. Remember that we already did central heart in the first section, which is the center of a space, the balance between your heart and the solar plexus, right here. And then from here, you just bring in your arms through the center of you, very, very gently. And then here, maybe I don't need the pillow anymore, because now what I need, I'm going to extend through the neck and through the head and through the sacrum, all of it. And I'm going to go to this form of the heart, right here. You see, between my fingers, this form of the heart will arrive in the floor, right like maybe 1 inch on top of my head. It depends on the length of your skeleton, right there. And this is another place to spend time with it. Notice that my elbows are quite high here. I am not here. See, I'm not pressing down with my elbows. My elbows are a little bit like diagonal to engage the pectorals and the trapezius and all the muscles in the scapulas and so forth. So all the muscle formation is extending from the front and the back through the neck and the head. This is called crown heart. And in crown heart, the 7 centers are open. The pelvic floor, the pelvis, the solar plexus, the chest, the throat, the head, and the crown. This is a very good place. You can close your eyes if you want to. You can breathe in it. And then when you're ready to come back, you descend with the placement of your arms. And when you arrive to the point of symmetry in your face, right here, you divide the right and the left in your arms, and you can descend back to almost to a place called foundation, almost to the place of the hip, right here, for a second. And then you can undo one leg, and you can undo the other leg, and go to natural bended knees for a second, lift the hips, and then extend one leg, and relax for a little bit. Right there. Wonderful. So just to clarify something that I just said in the last refinement, is that when I said it, all the 7 centers are open, I wanted to clarify that the whole study of unity in motion from the beginning, remember from the first section, geometrical unity, was to define the centers like foundation, central heart, the solar plexus and the heart, suspended diamond, the centralization of the throat, crown heart, the centralization of the head and the crown. And then through the mandala and through all the movements, we learn to be open constantly in the 7 centers, because the frame of 3 dimensions, of the movement of 3 dimensions, involve the continual opening of the 7 centers, always. So in all the movements, we are constantly experiencing the opening of the 7 centers. And now when you're learning, as you see through the bridge and through all this movement, that it seems to be complex because of the asymmetry and so forth, your mind is like, forget about the centers, just I'm trying to figure out what's happening with my arms and my legs and where I'm going. So, but any once in a while when we use the word, we are opening the 7 centers, is to remind you that each connection is opening in a specific center, like in the sun, I'm opening the center of my heart, but the actual centering of the center of the heart is also the centering of the opening of the 7 centers. Where I'm in infinity or upper diagonal, I'm opening the solar plexus, but all the 7 centers above and the center below are open. Even when I'm in foundation, I'm opening the pelvis and the pelvic floor, but all the 7 centers are aligned in a form that always open. So at any one moment, the frame of 3 dimension, of the movement of 3 dimension, means that the 7 centers are constantly operating in a synchronicity of relationship, from which then the center of your being becomes the center of a space. And then from that 7 centers, then 3 dimensions make sense. Because without the center, 3 dimension is just a concept. Of course, we are 3-dimensional, but we don't know, we cannot experience it without the sensation of center, from which then 3 dimensions becomes meaningful, because it becomes all directions of space.